My name is Karen Broussard. I'm the founder of Gluten-Free Travel Site, which is a website full of gluten-free dining and travel reviews from all over the world. We also have the Dine Gluten-Free mobile app, which is available for iOS and Android. It is a free app that you can download from either site. I am actually here. I was supposed to be the moderator of this panel, and then Ellen Morse had a family emergency. So I am standing in for her, presenting her slides. And she and I work very closely together anyway. She promotes all of her gluten-free itineraries on our website. So I've worked with her for years. And I think I speak for all of the panelists when I say I'd love for you all to leave here today knowing that you can travel virtually anywhere in the world and be safely gluten-free. We have come so far, both in the U.S. and around the world, in the past decade, that really there are no limits. In terms of Ellen's background, she has almost 20 years in the travel industry, 20 years experience in the travel industry, and about 10 years ago, she launched Gluten-Free Travel-US, or Gluten-Free Travel-US, to cater to the gluten-free traveler. She herself had been gluten-free and dairy-free since childhood, so she had decades of experience traveling on her own with these dietary restrictions, coupled with her experience as a travel specialist. So about 10 years ago, she realized that there was now a market for gluten-free travel. So that is when she launched her Gluten-Free Travel-US business, sort of making her dream a reality. She provides professional consultations to anyone looking to travel domestically or internationally. These are not group tours, so a lot of people shy away from group tours with people that they don't know or the dates don't work for them. Ellen's itineraries are customized. You can go at any time with a group of your choosing. You can just go with a spouse or your family. They're customized based on your interests, your budget, your desired length of stay, and the time frame you want to work around. And again, this encompasses, she has advice for people traveling either to big cities domestically, popular destinations overseas like Italy. She planned a trip for our family to Italy last summer. We toured Rome, Florence, and Venice, had an amazing time, and I have to say it was actually easier than dining here in the U.S. She does bike tours to Italy. She does trips to the Galapagos Islands, really some exotic and interesting things. Destinations that were previously difficult to do, like Japan, China, India, are now accessible to the gluten-free traveler. So how does she do this? She works with travel specialists in the home country. She has vetted hotels all over the world. She has relationships with cruise lines. With cruises, in my experience from running Gluten-Free Travel Site, we get a lot of cruise reviews on our site, and there's a whole section devoted to those. And it's very interesting because some cruise lines are stronger than others when it comes to catering to gluten-free guests. But even some of the stronger cruise lines like Royal Caribbean, you can have a very different experience depending on the ship and depending on the executive chef in charge. There's a lot of turnover in cruise lines, and our family had a great experience, but we did a lot of advanced research. I made sure they knew our preferences before going. I made sure the notes were made on the reservation. And I have talked to a lot of people who did not have a similar experience. So it really pays to do your research, be an advocate for yourself, make sure when you're traveling you not only make the request on the reservation, but that you meet with a maitre d' when you arrive, whether it's a cruise or a resort. Again, just the more you can do in advance, and once you arrive, the smoother the trip will go. And Ellen has these relationships with hotels, cruise lines, resorts, wholesalers, and local suppliers. But with that said, we always like to say that a gluten-free travel should really focus on the trip itself. You will be in some destinations where it's safest when you just order maybe a grilled chicken breast, baked potato, steamed vegetable. It's not terribly exciting, but you want to be safe. You do not want to be sick on your vacation. So depending on the countries, when Ellen works with the local travel specialists, for example, in places like Japan and China, she has her clients stay at vetted hotels, and they might get a breakfast there. And these are hotels that have experience serving gluten-free guests, and they can keep you safe. But she may tell you that for all of your meals in that country, you should be dining at that restaurant or that hotel or at the other restaurants that she vets. Because if you veer away from that, you're taking your health into your own hands. But again, make the focus on the culture of the area, the sightseeing, and the memories you're going to create, not just the food. And it's hard in places like Paris and Italy. I realize that. So she starts out by talking to her clients, having a personal conversation, developing trust, determining the unique needs of the client. And that may not just be gluten-free. It could be dairy-free, soy-free, egg-free, nut-free. You may have a child with special needs that are not diet-related. So she talks about how to meet all these different needs and then begins the planning. So she'll compile a food profile with all your allergies, restrictions, preferences, and this is what she'll pass along to the hotels, resorts, cruise ships. The first step, obviously, is to select a destination and look into airfare. Sometimes airfare can be cost prohibitive for people, so you don't want to go down the road planning where to stay, what sightseeing to do, where to eat, until you've looked into how much it is to get somewhere. I know last summer we were completely blown away at the price of tickets to Italy, but Italy is very popular. It remains one of the most popular destinations, especially in the summer. So you have to then decide, okay, is this worth it, or do I want to regroup and go somewhere else? Once you've determined where you want to go and that it is affordable, then you can move on to the next stage, which is the accommodations. This is a big one because in terms of staying gluten-free and safe on a trip and having the best food experience, there's a couple options. You can either go with a hotel, again, that's been vetted, that has a track record. If breakfast is included in your stay, you'll want to make sure that they have some gluten-free options. If you are staying at a resort, where you'll be taking most of your meals, you need to check that as well. And that's something that Ellen has the conversations in advance. She sets up a meeting when you arrive with one of the food and beverage managers. So whether you're staying at a hotel or a resort, you always want to do the advanced research, have Ellen on your side, making the connections. And then another option is you can always get your own apartment, which is very popular these days with companies like Airbnb. We stayed in apartments in both Rome and Florence when we went to Italy last year. And for our family, it worked really well because we have 2 teenage sons. We really didn't want to have to eat 3 meals a day out. It was nice to have 2 bedrooms, a living room, a dining area, a full kitchen. We made a big breakfast every morning and then set out on our own for sightseeing. We usually snacked or grabbed something quick for lunch, and then we would dine for dinner at a place that we had researched extensively online prior to our trip. But having apartments is a fantastic way to be in control of a lot of your meals, and it's often a more economical way to travel versus getting 1 or 2 hotel rooms. I've never used Airbnb myself. I know a lot of people are big fans. The nice thing about using someone like Ellen, she's had relationships with certain providers in the travel industry in various countries for 2 decades. So if you're over there, you're staying in an apartment, whether it's domestically or foreign travel, if you have a problem, you have someone you can call. You don't just have a local contact. You can get in touch with Ellen and she will solve it, versus kind of being on your own with an Airbnb contact and you don't really know anything about them. Ellen will also hook you up with sightseeing and activities, booking tours, excursions that utilize local experts and help you skip the line, which in Europe, if you're traveling at peak time, you can spend half your day waiting in line for tours at certain places or just to get in. And so we found that booking tours ahead of time was a huge time saver and also gave us that local expertise where we really learned a lot when we were at the sites. You're typically better off, back to accommodations for a minute, you're typically better off at higher-end resorts and hotels because they tend to have more experienced chefs that have been trained around the world and who tend to have some training with gluten-free. When Ellen puts together the food profile, again, she relays all that information to the people on the ground at your destination. She also provides you with a translation form to use that is relevant to the local country where you're traveling and gives you symbols and translations if the language is not English. And once again, all of Ellen's itineraries are on our site. If you go to Gluten-Free Travel site, to the Gluten-Free Getaways tab at the top of the page, you'll see about 15 different itineraries, really for all over the world, some destinations that were previously not accessible. So again, There's no limit to where you can go. Some of the places include Iceland, Prague, Italy, Croatia. Those are all typical favorites. South Africa, Chile, Cuba is now open for business. The Galapagos, Costa Rica, Japan, China, and India. But really, she works with clients to plan trips anywhere around the world. And even, if you're doing a domestic trip to a city where you're attending a wedding, visiting family, just being a tourist, she can provide that same food report. And you can also use resources like Gluten-Free Travel site to find more restaurants than you'll ever have time to go to. But you'll be able to find out about vetted restaurants that have been reviewed by fellow gluten-free travelers. So again, both resources, Ellen's Gluten-Free Travel business and my website, are great resources for you to tap into before planning any trip. If you're interested, you can see me afterwards. I have some flyers and some business cards for you to take with you. Thank you very much.